Hello children, today I welcome you all to another interesting episode of EDUSAT. We will be discussing a very interesting chapter, A Letter to God. We have already discussed part 1 and 2 and this is part 3. This is a part of your English syllabus and I hope you have paid attention to the first two parts. In this specific part, I will be discussing a few important question answers from your examination point of view. Please keep your notebooks and pencils ready and note down whatever is important. So, let us begin this very wonderful story, A Letter to God, Part 3. These are very short answer questions. What do I mean by very short answer questions? You just need to answer them in a line. Okay. So, let us see what the questions are. And as I said, please keep your notebooks ready so that you can note down while the program is going on. The very first question, I hope you are all ready children. Where was the house located? Now, in the first two parts, I had already given you a gist of the chapter. So, basing on that, the questions will come one by one. Where was the house located? It is the first question. So, what would be the answer? The house was located on the top crest of a low hill. Now, moving on to the second question. Why do you think it is called the house and not a house? My dear children, I would be very happy if you will be able to answer this yourself. The answer to it is called the house and not a house because it was the only house on the top of a hill in the entire valley. Now, what did Lencho do while he was gazing at the sky? What was he thinking? That is the third question. Why did Lencho keep gazing at the sky? Remember children, your answers need to be precise and to the point. So, what will be the answer? Lencho kept gazing at the sky because he very sincerely wished that it would rain. Moving on to the second set of questions. How did Lencho feel when it started raining? As we had discussed in the summary of the chapter, Lencho was very happy when it started raining. So, the answer would be Lencho felt very happy. Now, the fifth question. What was the effect of rain on the crops? What will be the answer children? Lencho's crops were destroyed because of the heavy downpour and storm. Now, what is the next question children? Lencho had only one hope. What was it? Lencho's only hope was that he would receive help from God. Moving on to the next slide children. Now, who was Lencho? We are talking so much about Lencho, but we should know who he is. So, Lencho was a hard-working farmer. The eighth question. What had Lencho been doing throughout the morning? He had been looking at the clouds in the northeast throughout the morning. Now children, all of these things are mentioned in your summary and also in the activities that were included in part 1 and 2. Part 3 is simply a revision of part 1 and 2. Moving on to the next question. What had Lencho been doing throughout morning that we discussed? Now what did Lencho's field need? I am sure all of you know the answer to this question. His fields needed rain very badly. What does Lencho call raindrops? This is something very interesting. He calls the big raindrops 10-cent pesos and the smaller raindrops as 5-cent pesos. Now, what are pesos? Pesos refer to a form of currency or coins. Like we have rupee in India, similarly, we have pesos as well. So, peso is a form of currency. How did Lencho's field look after the hail had rained? What will be the answer to this question? The field looked as if it was covered with salt, meaning it was completely white. Next, what was the effect of the hailstorm on the entire valley? No crop or vegetation was left in the entire valley. That will be the answer to this question. Children, remember, your answers should be crisp and to the point. That is the point of teaching you how to write very short answers. Now, moving on to the next slide. What did Lencho write in the letter and to whom was it addressed? The first part of the question is, Lencho wrote a letter to God. That is the answer to the first part of the question. And how much money did Lencho demand from God in his letter? In his letter, Lencho demanded 100 pesos from God. How much money did Lencho receive from God? He received only 70 pesos from God. Now children, as we know, Lencho's house was the only house in the entire valley. He was a very laborious and hard-working farmer. He wanted it to rain very badly, but instead of a good rain or a good shower, we found that the entire valley was affected by a hailstorm, as a result of which no vegetation could survive. Lencho's crops too famished, and then he was in desperate need of help and he wrote a letter to God in which he demanded around 100 pesos. But to his amazement, he only got 70 pesos. As we discuss, we will know what he did further. Now, moving on to the next slide. Who sent the money to Lencho? Naturally, you must be knowing who sent the money. The postmaster sent the money to Lencho. Why did the postmaster decide to answer Lencho's letter to God? By doing so, he wanted to protect Lencho's faith in God. That is why the postmaster sent money. How did Lencho feel when he counted the money in the envelope? He got very angry after counting the money in the envelope. Who does Lencho blame for the loss of 30 pesos in the envelope? He blames the post office employees for this loss. And what does Lencho call the post office employees? He calls them a bunch of crooks. Now, much to his disappointment, children, when Lencho opened the envelope, he found only 70 pesos. 30 pesos were missing and he wanted 100 pesos. So, naturally, his doubts sailed towards the postmaster and the employees of the post office, whom he called as a bunch of crooks. Now, after we have discussed these one-liners, it is now time for some short answer questions. In short answer questions, let me tell you children, you need to be a little descriptive. These are not one-liners, you need to explain your answers. Okay. So, what is the first question that we have here? What were the feelings that were found after Lencho had received the envelope with money in it? What did he do after opening the letter? What kind of feelings found way into Lencho's heart after he opened the envelope containing the money in it? Now, Lencho was a very devout person, so he was not at all surprised to see money in the letter as he was fully confident about it. He knew that God would send money to him. On opening the letter, he found 70 pesos instead of 100. So, he wrote another letter to God to send the rest of the amount, but now not through mail, as the post office employees were thieves and crooks. So, we move on to the next question. What is the next question, children? Whom did Lencho write a letter to and what did he ask for? Now, when Lencho's annual crop was completely destroyed due to heavy rains and hailstorms, and there was no one to help him during the crisis, at that time Lencho wrote a letter to God. He wrote the letter requesting him to send 100 pesos so that he could sow his fields again till the next crop. Now, this shows how simple Lencho was, how devout Lencho was, how unshakable his faith in the Almighty was. Okay. Now, moving on. What does the postmaster send? What does the postmaster send? He sends money to Lencho. Why does he sign the letter God? Now let's look into the answer. The postmaster was a very kind, generous, helpful and God-fearing man. When he received the letter written to God asking him for 100 pesos, he felt very sympathetic towards Lencho. Hence, he decided to help Lencho in every way he could. He gave a part of his salary and asked other employees to help. He signed the letter God in order to preserve Lencho's faith in the Almighty. Now children, one-liner questions I know you would not be needing to note down, but these are descriptive answers and I want you to note down wherever you want to, so that you will be clear about the concept when you read for your examination point of view. How far would you agree that one's positivity can bring in a spark of brightness even in adverse circumstances? It is absolutely true that optimism can bring about a spark of brightness even in adverse situations. It was Lencho's innocent optimism that eventually led to his getting 70 pesos. In fact, it was his positivity despite the hailstorm that he even wrote a letter to God in the first place. His hope finally triumphed. Now children, all I want to say after this slide is, look at Lencho. He was a simple devout farmer. His faith in God was ultimately rewarded because the postmaster and his employees, they were very sympathetic towards him. They wanted to preserve his faith in God, and what they did was they collected a sizable amount and then sent it to Lencho. The postmaster signed the letter as God to preserve Lencho's faith in God. And Lencho, from this account we know, is a highly optimistic and confident person because he knew God would help him in any way he can. So children, always have a spark of optimism in you even when you are going through the darkest of times. Okay, now moving on to the next question. Was Lencho surprised to find a letter with money in it? Lencho was not at all surprised to receive an envelope with money in it because he had utter faith in God. His unshakable faith in God gave him a lot of confidence. What impressions do you form of the postmaster after reading the story, A Letter to God? The postmaster was a kind, generous, helpful, amiable and God-fearing man. He was generous as he helped Lencho with 70 pesos. He also wrote a reply to Lencho's letter in order to maintain his faith in God. So children, we see that even in this materialistic world of today, we still find people who are charitable, who want to help others and who find a way to help others in their own little way without making it known to them, so that people can at least preserve their faith in God. This is a very wonderful quality the postmaster has. Lencho has one very endearing quality, which is his faith in God, and the postmaster has one of the biggest qualities that one needs in life, that is compassion, kindness and generosity. So children, I hope all of you would imbibe these qualities within you as well when you grow up, as the postmaster did, and help those who are in need, so that you receive abundant of blessings from God, and that also will preserve your faith in God as well as the faith of others in God. Okay children, we will go on to other questions as well. Now children, what are the other questions? Let's move on. Why was Lencho angry and what did he do? Lencho had deep faith in God and hence wrote a letter to God asking for 100 pesos. But when he received 70 pesos instead of 100, he was very angry. He wrote another letter to God asking him to send the rest of the money, but not through post office as they were a bunch of crooks. Lencho calls the raindrops as new coins. Why does he say so? So what will be the answer, children? Lencho hoped that he would get good crops because of raindrops. He thought he would earn good money, so he called them as new coins. But raindrops soon turned into hailstones which destroyed all his crops and ruined all his hopes. Moving on to the next question. Why were Lencho and his family in distress? Whom did he ask for help? So what will be the answer to this question, children? Lencho's crops were completely destroyed by the hailstones. He feared that he and his family would go hungry. He had no one to help, but he had full faith in God, whose eyes see everything. He wrote a letter to God asking for 100 pesos to sow the crop and live until the next harvest. So that will be the answer to this particular question. Moving on, the next question is, now we are really going to get some water, woman. Is Lencho sure that it is going to rain? Give a reason for your answer. Yes, Lencho is very sure that it is going to rain. He needs rain for his crops. He has been gazing at the sky since morning. He has perhaps seen some signs of incoming rain. True to his prediction, it started raining soon. Now the next question, what are the raindrops compared to and why? It starts raining. Lencho was very happy. He compares the big raindrops of rain to 10-cent pieces and the little ones to 5-cent pieces. Lencho needs rain for a good harvest. If he has good crops, he will get good money. That is why he compares the raindrops to coins. Now, did the letter reach God? Why did the postmaster send a reply to Lencho? No, the letter did not reach God. The postman saw the letter and it was addressed to God. So he took out the letter from the bag. The postmaster did not want to shake Lencho's faith in God. So he sent a reply to Lencho, putting 70 pesos in the envelope. Now look at the next question, children. Why was Lencho angry when he received the letter? Lencho had asked God to send him 100 pesos. But what happened when he received the envelope? But when he opened the envelope, he found only 70 pesos in it. He thought that the post office employees had taken the rest of the money. So he became very angry when he received the letter. Children, be very clear. Answers to each particular question should be written in a distinct way. So do not overlap whatever you want to write. Be very clear in your mind how you want to represent your answers. Lencho describes the post office employees as a bunch of crooks. Were they really a bunch of crooks? How would you describe them? Lencho thought that the post office employees had in fact cheated him. So he calls them a bunch of crooks. But in reality, they were not crooks at all. They were very kind people. They wanted to help Lencho. So they collected 70 pesos and sent the money to Lencho via mail. Where was Lencho's house situated? Lencho was a farmer. His house was the only one in the valley. It was situated on the top of a low hill overlooking the valley. From his height, he could see the river. He could also see his fields of ripe corn dotted with flowers. The flowers always promised a good harvest. So here we get a very beautiful description of Lencho's house. The scenery is very vividly described. What does Lencho see? He sees a field which is dotted with cornflowers, and more the number of flowers, the more sure he is that he will have a wonderful harvest that year. What did Lencho and the earth need immediately? The only thing that the earth needed was rain. Lencho, being a farmer, wished for heavy rain. At least a shower was necessary. His fields needed water immediately. Otherwise, the crop would be completely ruined. So, he constantly looked at the sky towards the northeast. Now, Lencho, he knew that earth needed rain, his crops needed to survive. So, what he kept doing was looking towards the northeast in the hope of rain. Now, moving on to the next question, children. How did the rain come as predicted by Lencho and how did he receive it? Lencho's wife was preparing supper, which means dinner. The older boys were working in the field. It was during in the meal time that from the northeast a huge mountain of cloud came up. Then, as Lencho had predicted, big drops of rain began to fall. Lencho went out to have a pleasure of feeling the rain on his body. To him, the raindrops were like new coins. Now, what do we see in the next slide? Another question. Why were the raindrops like new coins for Lencho? Lencho had been impatiently waiting for the rain. The earth also needed a downpour immediately. At least a shower was necessary to save the crops. Fortunately for Lencho, the northeast direction showed a huge mountain of cloud which could be approaching. Big drops of rain began to fall. Every drop was precious for the fields and the crops, and bigger drops, according to Lencho, were worth 10 pesos and the little ones were worth 5 pesos. Now, why did Lencho's happiness change into deep concern? As Lencho had predicted, the rain did come at mealtime. It came in the form of big drops. Naturally, the rain gladdened his heart. He could see better prospects of a good crop. However, his happiness was short-lived. Suddenly, a strong wind began to blow. The rain turned into a big hailstorm. The type of hailstorm that is enough to cause deep concern to a farmer. Describe the loss caused by the heavy fall of hailstones in general and to Lencho in particular. For an hour, the hailstones rained on the house, the garden, the hillside and the cornfield. Actually, the whole valley was covered with them. Leaves and flowers were destroyed. Lencho's fields were covered with white layers. The corn was totally destroyed. The hail had left practically nothing, and there was no chance of any corn that year for poor Lencho. Now, the next question. In the hearts of all who lived in that solitary house, there was a single hope. What was that? The hail had practically left nothing. The cornfields were totally destroyed. Lencho and his family would have no corn that year. He could expect no help from human beings. In the hearts of all who lived in that solitary house, there was a single hope, help from God. Only God could save them from such a miserable situation. Why did Lencho think of writing a letter to God? What did he write in the letter? The hailstorms completely destroyed Lencho's cornfields. They would have no corn that year. Having lost all hopes, Lencho thought of writing a letter to God. He requested God to send him 100 pesos so that he could sow his fields again. He wrote that he needed money to live until the new crops came. If God didn't help, his family would face starvation. Now, children, all the questions that I am showing you here have been repeated in your previous slides. So, we need not go through them. However, what we need to observe is this chapter shows that how human beings should preserve their faith in God, and that is what the simple devout farmer Lencho did. I hope you would have all noted down whatever was important to you. Have a nice day, children. Thank you.